Hello everybody, this video is going to be the top 5 meta carries for 7.31. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Banana slam jam.
Coming in at number 1 is going to have to be Tiny. So in 7.31, they gave Tiny 20 flat damage on his tree, which also works on denies. The old bonus damage did not. So his laning stage was made much better in that regard. And then his shard, which is a 1400 gold Battle Fury, is now moved to 15 minutes instead of 20, which greatly accelerates all of his timings and thus making the hero quite a menace. Being the most picked hero in the carry role in the Immortal bracket, he has a nearly 55% win rate despite being first picked in most of my games. The hero's general item build is Treads into Echo Saber, Shadow Blade, and then from there you consider items such as upgrading the Shadow Blade to a Silver Edge, a Blink Dagger if you have to jump the backlines, BKB, Satanic, Moon Shard, Butterfly, Soul Cuirass, Daedalus. All these items are on the table for Tiny. The hero shreds buildings and is best paired with a buffing support such as Io, Ogre, or Omni Knight. His worst matchups are heroes with strong damage reduction, in the offlane role especially, being Timbersaw, Underlord, as well as Tidehunter. I think this hero is quite easy to learn for most carry players, as he's basically a Sven that can represent burst damage in the mid game, and late game, he's also a building sieger. Coming in at number 2 has to be Templar Assassin. Also picked in many of my games, can also be played in the mid role. What made TA so much better is that the new jungle camps being stronger, providing break, providing disarms, stacks being harder to clear, don't affect a long-ranged hero like TA nearly as much as they affect the other heroes. So her timings were not decelerated in the slightest, and the new Deso is way buffed for any hero that can afford to rush it. It used to only give 55 damage, and once you get the full damage stacks on it, it provides 75 damage. So for a hero that so naturally builds the item and usually gets kills afterwards, it's no doubt why TA has suddenly skyrocketed in the meta. In terms of item build, you usually go for the Treads Dragonlance Deso, Blink BKB, consider items like Hurricane Pike, Bloodthorn, MKB, Daedalus, pretty much anything that allows you to maneuver fights as well as deal the necessary damage with your right clicks. Her worst matchups are heroes that do immense damage over time. Darkseer, Viper, Venomancer are the ones that initially come to mind. Also highlighted can be Batrider, but that's more so from the mid lane, but can still hurt you if you're playing carry TA. I think TA is a little bit more difficult to learn than Tiny, because she has very unique mechanics with the way side blades work, and refraction, and traps, but we'll give her about 10-15 games, and I think you'll find that she's quite nice because she protects herself with the traps while she's farming, and then once you get the hang of side blades, she's quite a flash farmer. Coming in at number 3, which has been one of my favorite heroes of the patch, has been Chaos Knight. His win rate in the Immortal bracket is also above 55%. And what makes Chaos Knight so strong right now is that the meta is incredibly fight-heavy in the early game. And they made it so that his crit does 1.5 damage to creeps. So they greatly accelerated his farm, but they also made it so that you sustain much better in lane. Because when you crit for an extra 50% damage on creeps, that means you're also lifestealing for an extra 50%, which means it's almost impossible, it seems, to bully CK out of lane unless he's in a very bad matchup, such as Timbersaw. CK's standard item build is to go Treads, Armlet, into items like BKB, Manta. You can consider an Ags later on, Heart of Tarask, Satanic, Sanj and Yasha. Pretty much any item that allows you to position better, or an item that allows you to get strength. Because CK is an illusion hero at the end of the day, and predominantly benefits from strength when it comes to damage. Now, one of the biggest things about CK that's new compared to the old patches is that he used to be a very hard committal hero that had to play around a long cooldown ultimate, and he had to commit to fights in order to deal his damage. But now, with the 15-minute shard, which you can strongly consider buying, he becomes somewhat like a PL that can also hard commit and dishes out insane damage. His Chaos Bolt turns into a Phantasm spawning ability with the talent being on a very low cooldown. So it also allows you to consider items like Ether Lens into Octarine, playing similar to the old PL. In terms of difficulty to learn, I do think CK is a bit harder, because he does not have innate flash farm mechanics, and you do generally want to be fighting a bit more with him. But at the end of the day, if you're really struggling with that aspect of him, you can consider items like Battle Fury, especially if you're dealing with illusion heroes. His worst matchups are heroes with summons, as well as heroes that have illusions, because CK is purely a single target damage dealing hero. I love picking CK against squishy backline supports that can often be quite pesky and elusive. Things like Mirana, Weaver, Hoodwink, etc. Coming in at number 4, another highlight hero of the patch is Huskar. Now, Huskar is definitely the cheese hero of all cheese heroes, as they provided him with magic resistance back on his passive. Despite the armlet nerf, Huskar loves the pace of the current meta. He gets to rush that armlet in lane, ideally, buying as few items as possible beforehand, and in the late game, his scaling is much better than it used to be. You look to take that early Roche with your armlet timing, you can consider a casual Sange, perhaps a Halberd if you're dealing with a significant right-clicker like Ursa, TA, or Drow. But then, you can strongly consider items like Ags and Blink Dagger, and what Huskar used to lack is mobility and the ability to lock people down. The best way to generally deal with Huskar is to ignore him on the map. Act like he doesn't exist and try not to fight him. So Huskar, you build yourself to a point where they can't fight you, and then you look to buy items like Ags and Blink, and make it so that they have to fight you. He's also rocking a 55% win rate with about 600 games in the Immortal bracket during this patch. On a level of difficulty to learn, I think he's a noob stomper. The lower MMR you are, the easier it is to learn him. The only difficulty I think that comes with Huskar is if you are a noob at armlet toggling. Armlet toggling is a very important skill with Huskar because he's pretty much always playing at low HP, and if you survive at low HP, it could be the difference between dying instantly or getting a rampage. Huskar's worst matchups are long-range damage dealers, such as Clinks, Drow, that make it difficult for him to be able to stand his ground in the mid-game, and also heroes that prevent him from healing, such as Ancient Apparition being one of the worst. You also have to consider heroes with global presence, perhaps heroes that hunt you in the jungle when you're low, like Bounty Hunter, and when it comes to global presence, we're talking about the likes of Invoker, especially because his Sunstrike is pure damage and can snipe you from anywhere on the map. And last but not least, I think the most reliable of all carries, rocking the 6th highest win rate in the Immortal bracket, would be Wraith King. This hero didn't get really changed by the fact that they nerfed some of his skills, because at the end of the day, they buffed his skeletons, making it so that his own skeletons provide him with charges on his own skeletons. This makes it so that his jungling phase is even better than it was last patch, built-in sustain in lane, and you still generally will go for the phase boots armlet into items like Deso, BKB, Blink. His entire build, generally speaking, got buffed. The only consideration now, which you usually do not go Radiance, is that if you are dealing with an illusion hero, that you could consider Radiance because the item got buffed for him as well. When it comes to worst matchups for Wraith King, I think it's mainly in lane that he needs to get out of. If he gets out of the lane strong, he should do just fine. So the matchups that give him some issue are heroes like Venomancer, which make it very difficult for him to stay in lane, Timbersaw, as well as Tidehunter also. Other heroes that do physical damage in the early game, such as Legion and Mars, can also cause him some issues. When it comes to the carry matchups, he does the worst with Mana Burn, such as Anti-Mage, PL, etc., Diffusal Buyers. But now that the Shard's moved up, if you do need to buy it, it is only 15 minutes into the game. Still, 1,400 gold that you don't necessarily want to go for that early, because it's mainly to keep you alive, not to accelerate your farm like it does on Tiny. So thanks for watching, guys. That's my top 5 carry heroes for 7.31. I will be releasing top 5 heroes for pretty much every role in the near future. So if you like these videos, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow along. See you guys.